What's up? Welcome back to another video. So if you've seen my 6-month and 1-year videos on Elvanse, you'll know I started to help with my ADHD and to help with sort of focus, emotional regulation, motivation, etc. Today's video is an update on how those things are still affecting me after 2 years of being on Elvanse. And I just want to preface this video by saying, obviously everyone reacts really differently to all medications, and this is just my experience only, that's all it is. The first thing I want to cover is whether it's still effective for me really, which is the most important question. And the short answer to that question would be yes, but it's changed over time. At first the effects were really strong, as you can probably understand. It was all very new to my system, my body wasn't entirely sure what was happening, so my focus, motivation, emotional regulation was probably a little bit better, and now it still has a massive effect after 2 years, but I'd say it's probably less of like a wow in comparison to the night and day change that I saw when I first started Elvanse. In terms of the dosage, I'm still on the exact same dose that I finished my titration on, which is 40 milligrams. I tried lower, I tried higher, and we found that 40 was about right in terms of where my body felt the most benefit from the medication without any negative side effects. And as I mentioned before as well, I do still do the same thing where I take it really early in the morning. So I set my alarm for an hour and a half before I need to be up for the day. I then take my medication, go back to sleep for an hour and a half, and then as my actual alarm goes off for me to get up and move on with the day, that's when the medication's starting to have the most effect. And that's when I feel as though it's most beneficial for me. And I do want to say, obviously, this video is all about how the medication helps me. But I do want to say that Elvanse isn't a cure. I've said it before and I'll say it again. It's a tool that's helped me fix a lot of the issues with my focus, motivation, but it's not a panacea. It's not a magic bullet that's going to cure everything that's wrong with your life if you have this diagnosis and start this medication. It's a tool in your toolkit that you can use that helps bring more balance to everything in your life, I feel. I still need structure, I still need routines, I still make to-do lists, like unbelievable amounts of to-do lists to help me get things done. And without those, the medication wouldn't be anywhere near as effective, and vice versa, I suppose. So I think the strategies that I put in place are massively beneficial in terms of getting the most out of the medication, and in combination with them, they have a huge effect. And I always think it's better to tackle any issue head on with as many different tools as you can and from as many different angles. And if medication is one of those that you feel like you would benefit from, then I think it's definitely worth it. So moving on to the side effects and the long-term effects of Elvanse. And one thing that stayed pretty consistent throughout the whole journey of trying different ADHD medications and finally landing on Elvanse is this feeling of anxiety or nervousness that I get, particularly in like high pressure situations. There is an underlying feeling of nervousness that may be completely unrelated to this, but the medication does seem to make it a little bit more heightened, and most likely makes me a bit more aware of it as well. Over time, I think I've noticed that that side effect has sort of played out in social situations as well. So I can somehow feel a little bit withdrawn, or like I'm overthinking in social situations when I have taken my medication. And I feel as though that's something that quite a lot of people say is one of the big side effects. You're a bit more motivated to get things done, a bit more driven, a bit more task oriented. And in social situations, I think the medication takes a little bit of my kind of creative thinking out of things and makes me a little bit more outcome focused. I'm not sure if that all makes sense together, but it's how I feel, I guess. And in terms of how I manage this now compared to when I first started the medication, at first I didn't really connect these feelings to the medication itself, but now I'm much more aware of how it affects me emotionally on a day-to-day basis. And I found things like mindfulness, taking regular breaks, or avoiding too much caffeine throughout the day can help balance out those feelings of anxiety. And for socializing, I'll usually try and plan ahead. That's kind of my biggest thing that I do. Give myself a little bit of time before I know I'm going to have to be very sociable for an evening. I'll try and sit down and meditate for 10, 15, 20 minutes and kind of think through how I want things to go, how I want to feel at the time, who I want to bring to the social situation, what version of myself. And I think it's really important to give myself a little bit of time to recharge, whether it be sort of after work, before going to a social event, just to make sure I'm going into it with the right frame of mind. And I've spoken about the importance of these things before as well, but things like hydration, exercise, even something as simple as just going for a short walk can really help take the edge off of those feelings. But I want to come back around and talk about how it's actually positively changed my life, because I do really feel as though the benefits have outweighed the costs. So firstly, its effect on my work, my new-ish job as a physio. In my job, I need to be quite focused and organised, which are two traits that people with ADHD, generally speaking, have real issues with. I found Elvanse has a really big effect on my ability to stay on top of those things, generally speaking. Without it, it would be 10 times harder. It's still a struggle, and I think it'll always be a struggle to a certain degree, but it's night and day compared to where I was before I started taking the medication. And the second biggest thing would be my energy levels as well. I find myself wanting to be productive all the time and not feeling good unless I am really productive, which I suppose you could see as a positive and a negative. But it's meant that a lot of things in my life that without the medication I would have let slip and go downhill have actually stayed quite steady, or have even got much better over the past 2 years. And I think I can owe that to the medication in a couple of ways. Firstly, as I said, the energy levels that it gives me. But secondly, the change in mindset and the desire to kind of constantly improve the situation that you might currently find yourself in. A couple of things that I wish I knew before starting Elvanse. The first one would be, like I said earlier, the fact that the medication isn't a cure. It's a tool that can help you to improve your life through better focus, more motivation, generally a better feeling, and a desire to be productive. The medication itself isn't a cure that's going to solve all of your problems. It's something that's going to give you a foot up for you to then grab hold of these things and try and get them a bit more under control. I think I was under the illusion that it was going to solve everything all at once, and I wasn't going to ever have to think things through or even put any effort into things. It was all going to come naturally as a result of the medication. That isn't the case, and it's kind of crazy of me to have thought that way. But I think I was so desperate for an answer at that point that I was hopeful that was going to be it, which it isn't, as I mentioned, but it is a huge piece of the puzzle when it comes to putting your life back together and building a good foundation that you know you can rely upon on those days where you don't feel the medication's working, perhaps. And so if someone asked me now whether I'd still choose to go onto the Elvanse or not, I would say 100% yes for me. And I think something to be aware of if you're soon to start Elvanse or you've recently started it would be to be really patient about things. Take your time to find the right dose, the right medication itself, the right routine that works for you. All of those things do take a bit of time, but it's well worth it in the long run. If you can really nail those things down, it's made dealing with the ups and downs of the medication a lot easier for me over the past 2 years, and I feel like it would for you as well. And also don't forget to check in with yourself. I've spoken about it before, and it's something that I used to do a lot of, not so much anymore, but I do try to meditate as often as I can to keep an eye on things, to just maybe journal or keep a diary of how you're feeling, because there will be ups and downs, but if you can look back and say there's been more ups and downs over the past 2-year period, as it is for me, I have a good amount of experience to say it's well worth me staying on it for the long run. I feel as though that would be really good for anyone to do if they've started any ADHD medication or if they're soon to be starting as well. And so a couple of final thoughts on ADHD medication, particularly my experience with Elvanse over the past 2 years. It still helps unbelievable amounts, but I have had to adapt both my expectations and my lifestyle to fit the reality of what comes along with Elvanse. I'm learning to live with the anxiety and the nervousness. And yes, the effects aren't as dramatic as they were when I first started taking it, but it's made such a big difference in my life that I know it's been worth it. Again, as always, I'd be really interested to hear any of your experiences with Elvanse or any other ADHD medications. So do leave your experience down in the comments. I really enjoy hearing from you guys and learning about your own journey with sort of titrations and different ADHD medications and what you ended up settling on. Yeah, if you found this video helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe as well. But that's all for today, so I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.